All right, Meta, what do you got for us?
So it's not as horror based as Tets's, but I will admit I don't want to spoil anything for you because you haven't played the game yet.
I'm going to play it eventually.
So I don't want to ruin anything for you, but there are some really good moments and there is some horror abound. But actually, I want to talk about superheroes and specifically the best kind of superheroes, parody superheroes.
Thor comes out tonight. No.
No, not Thor. I'm not gonna talk about Thor. I can't talk about it. It's not even out yet.
I'm going to see it in 3 hours.
Are you?
Yes, I am.
Oh man, I might see it on Sunday, so we might have something to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure Mal will see it too. But go on.
I'm gonna talk about South Park, the fractured butthole.
It's the fractured butthole, not the fractured butthole, Meta. Come on, get it right.
No, I said it exactly right.
I don't hear a difference. I don't hear a difference.
Oh man.
I mean, it's South Park, so.
Yeah, it's South Park. I was actually watching streamers play this game for a little bit. Specifically, I think it was Jesse Cox. I was following him on this one because he was just the first one I saw. But I don't know, man. Like, I just saw the game. I saw some of the stuff, and I was like, "Oh, this is really, really good." And I started to really get into the game, and then I was like, "I need to get this game. I need to pay it." So I dropped the money on it. I played it. It's South Park.
I've been tempted.
It's definitely.
Man, I love South Park. It's one of my favorite shows. So.
It actually got me to start watching some of the seasons again.
Yeah. And
I'm not huge on South Park, but watching the Let's Plays of this game have me wanting playing this game.
It's honestly, it's a very enjoyable game. The story is very hilarious, as always per South Park. It's
like a 20-hour South Park movie, basically.
There's, I think the full movie, somebody clocked in with all the video scenes and whatnot, is like 2.5 hours, which is general for games nowadays. So it's like a really long. It's almost like a very short season of South Park, if you will. But the game was fun. It is still South Park at its core. Satire is abound. The premise of the game is that essentially you guys are still playing the Stick of Truth when Cartman comes in and states that there is evil crime going down and they need to switch over, and he also has a poster of $100 reward so they can start their franchise, the superhero franchise.
Yeah, because they're trying to find a missing cat, right?
Yeah, they're trying to find a missing cat, and that's really what starts off the whole thing. So they immediately quit. They tell them everybody else is losers, and they can go home. They're playing superheroes now. So you were the king. You were the king originally, and now you go down there, and they're like, "Well, I guess we can have you join us. We'll make you start you with a really small kid."
Yeah, how do they work in the new kid into this thing? Because you were you were the Dragonborn at the end of the last game. You're basically the guy from Skyrim, literally. Like they call you Dovahkiin and stuff.
Yep. Long story short, they kind of work you in is that you essentially go downstairs. You figure out what the password is to get into Cartman's basement because he set one up. He set it up to keep his mom out. You find the password. You go downstairs in the basement. He's trying to figure out look, we're playing superheroes. You can't play with us. But obviously because you're the completely silent protagonist, the Cartman eventually gives in. He's like, fine, we'll create a backstory for you, and whatnot. Let's create a character.
That's so awesome. I haven't watched anything in this game yet, by the way.
It's really well done. It's as always, it's Cartman being Cartman. When he kind of leads you.
Cartman being Cartman.
And so the gameplay in itself is very fun. It's very basic though. There really isn't a lot to the meat and potatoes of the game. So if you're really a mechanical person or you love learning about frame data, this is not the game for you. Although it is based on a more strategic setup, it's still not all that deep. But you get generally some status effects. You get effects that can happen from your attacks. It's done in generally a grid system. You've got you essentially move 4 ways: south, north, east, west. You have a certain amount of movement that you can do per turn. You have different classes that you can choose from, and eventually you can triple or even quad class later on. But at the beginning of the game, you can just choose 1 or 3 classes, and that's your starting loadout. Which covers your core things. You get a very upfront melee character who's kind of the Hulk and stuff, characters like that.
Is that like a Tolkien in this game? Is he isn't Tupperware like the tank or something in this game?
Tupperware is a gadgeteer, as they call it. He uses gadgets and whatnot to...
Batman and Iron Man.
Yeah, essentially. That's really what he is. They're all based. Obviously, they're all based. Like all the classes are based off of different themes and whatnot. You've got the blaster, who is essentially your long range character, and then you've got
that's like Kyle, right?
Yeah,
human
Kyle.
kite.
Yeah, Kyle is like the human kite. And then you've got like your speedster character, which are your 3 starting classes, and you can choose from them. And they all have different effects. They all have different abilities. There's some very interesting stuff that you can do with all of them.
But is that what Mysterion is? Is he like the speeder?
Essentially, your character follows the point of like just starting as a superhero to be eventually becoming like the destined superhero to save everything, just like it was in the last game, where you start off as like nothing and you become everything. Obviously, during this time, while you guys are playing superheroes, there's other shit going on that's in the background that eventually you guys deal with because it's the central focus. Of the
it's
game.
South Park, so
it's South Park. Everything eventually converges together. It's pretty silly and dumb.
Yeah.
The jokes are on point. It's the obviously I have to talk about it because it's the one thing that everybody talks about. The difficulty slider in the game, where you choose your skin tone, and if you choose like completely pale, you're easy mode. If you go black, it's called difficult or like hard. I want to say for the record, apparently it doesn't actually really change anything.
Yeah.
Some of the dialogue for the characters does change to you. I still have to play. I'm actually going to go and play through the game with that slider on just to find out the differences.
Well, I think to get the platinum, you have to play as a black character.
Yeah, you actually have to play. You have to play as the black character, and you have to play it on the hardest at combat difficulty, which is really where the difficulty comes into play. If you play through the whole game like that, you'll get the platinum achievement on there, which is kind of silly. Although I'll be honest, the game is not that hard. I played it on normal difficulty because.
I always play on normal the first time I play a game.
I played on normal difficulty. I thought it was going to be a little bit more difficult, but it's not. The scaling of enemies and how hard they can wreck you does get pretty potent later on.
And it's got some bad ramping.
Yeah, it's got some bad ramping. Later on, your allies can start being taken out pretty quickly. It generally becomes that sometimes it almost felt like I really needed a character who could heal. Healing items for the first, I would say, 2/3 of the game. I didn't really need to use healing items. Sometimes if my character got killed by just an unfortunate move on my part, I might have had to use 1 or 2 healing serums, like reviving items, for the first 2/3 of the game. And then after that, it actually became pretty normal for me to start utilizing healing items a lot. And part of the problem is just that like the ramping is just enemies get really strong. I think on the harder difficulties show out, but for the most part, as long as you play smart, you can win the game pretty easily. There's generally a basic strategy to doing things.
That's how Stick of Truth was. Stick of Truth was basically the old combat was like Paper Mario. Essentially, you have your old time stuff. You have like some abilities and stuff like that. I mean, the games are kind of like not really about the combat necessarily. Like the game, it's more about like, oh, I'm playing an episode of South Park. It's kind of the whole thing of the game. I'm not saying the game can't be fun or anything, or you can't get enjoyment out of it, but it's kind of like almost like just a game geared towards people who can tolerate South Park.
That's really what it felt like to me. Playing through the game is very simple, in my eyes, at least. I went through it. I had a lot of fun, but I really was playing it just to try to get through all the South Park cutscene stuff because I really wanted just to see like what was going to happen next to the kids. And then obviously the people surrounding the kids and whatnot. So I enjoyed it for that.
And the first one has lots of great references. As someone who's seen like every episode, I think up to that point they had an Easter egg for every episode of South Park. There was some kind of reference to it, like whether it was a random item you picked up or like something on a wall or something you saw in the background.
They do that off of this game as well. Like for instance, you have the member berries. They show up, and they're essentially a collectible. Like trying to find them all just to get an achievement.
Yeah.
Then you have Craig and Tweak Yahweh collection. You have to go around and collect all the Yahweh of them. It turns out Craig's father is like trying to collect all of it because he's trying to sell it to people because apparently there's a very big market for it.
There's that episode is great, by the way.
I love that episode. That actually was a really good episode. I loved it. There's other collectible stuff in the game that you can go around, but really those are the 2 major ones that I can remember off the top of my head.
The first one was the Chin Pokemon. To collect all the Chin Pokemon.
God.
There's like, isn't there one garage that has like Chin Pokemon in the garage?
That actually does get referenced actually. One of the characters is called Call Girl. It's Wendy. She's Call Girl.
Oh my god!
She uses phones and shit to
freaking name. Is
yeah,
Call Girl.
That's her super hero name. But her ultimate ability is quite literally she takes two phones and is effectively Chin Pokemon Go, and then states that there's like a really rare Chin Pokemon in the area where you're fighting, and the whole field gets filled up with people. They just trample over all the bad guys trying to find the rare Pokemon. It's
That's
perfect.
Awesome.
It does reference it. They have references to Season 19. PC Principal shows up, and you learn how to utilize microaggressions to your advantage.
Oh my god,
that's
amazing!
Like, free hits on people. You can do extra damage to them.
Trigger.
Yeah. they have the Shipey. I can't remember what it's called, like Shipey Town and like Sopa.
Oh yeah,
Those showed up from Season 19. Obviously the member berries from Season 20 show up and whatnot.
Yeah.
So you got a lot of things that like are referenced. I don't know if it's as many Easter eggs, but there are a fair number of Easter eggs from those 2 seasons alone within the game, not counting older seasons and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I honestly though it was really enjoyable. I liked going through it, and the there are I want to talk about the classes really fast here. I think there are about 10 to 12 classes to choose from.
Oh,
I don't remember.
A lot. That's more than I thought.
Yeah, it's actually a lot. You essentially get 3 main abilities, which are essentially your core 3 abilities that you utilize, and then you have your ultimate when in the game. And the ultimate will fill up as you do actions and whatnot, damaging or pressing a timed key to get a little health back when you get hit.
Yeah.
Or raise up your ultimate meter. The only downside is that unfortunately, as you get more classes and you really want to try out different combinations, because there's a point in the game where you unlock all the classes, like because Timmy is essentially Xavier from X-Men.
That's amazing.
There's a point where he just unlocks all of them for you at the same time, so you have access to all of them across the board, and it's really cool. It's really nice. But there is definitely a point where it's like I really want to try certain builds, but I really wish I had another just a normal slot, like one more ability slot that I could choose from, so I could really cover some bases on stuff. There's also a lot of times where certain abilities do tend to be only attached to one thing. Like I think there's only one ability in the game that lets you confuse opponents, and that's from the Psychic class. Mm-hmm. I know for a fact that there's only one ability that allows you to charm opponents, and that's from the Plantmancer. And unfortunately, Plantmancer and the Martial Artist come really late in the game, so it kind of sucks because if you really wanted to play with those classes early on, or try them out with different things, you have to wait until they show up later on to really play with them. There is very much there's a number of other different varied things, like how they affect not only how they work on the field, like Cerebral Blast from the Psychic is like diagonals from you, but it's the only move that does that. You'll generally find that there's definitely, it feels like there are certain moves that are just better than other moves though. Overall, there's one ability from the Assassin class, which does like 3 spaces north, south, east, and west of you. You hit them for not only a fair amount of damage, but you cause the bleeding status effect on them, so it's really hard to not utilize that because it's just a really potent move.
Just go full on Peacekeeper.
Yeah, pretty much. The Assassin, I'd actually argue that the Assassin class is probably one of the best, if not the best class in the game. It has ranged moves. It has the ability to go invisible, which means the enemies can't attack you. It has the ability to. It has 2 of its attack types. Actually, 3, not counting its ultimate. If you don't count its ultimate, it's 2. If you count its ultimate, then it's 3. 2 of its attacks cause bleed damage, status effect on your opponent, and one of them hits as hard, if not harder, than the starting melee class in the game, which causes knockback, and it also has bleed. But technically knockback, if you knock it into an ally, they'll also do damage to the opponent as well.
Yeah, it's like an attack of opportunity, basically.
Yeah, essentially. If you knock them into an enemy, you deal damage to the extra enemy as well. If you knock it into an ally, they take another hit from them.
Nice.
So,
isn't there also sometimes like items on the field that you can knock them into to do damage?
Yes.
As well?
Yeah, there's items you can knock them into as well. Knockback in general, I think, is probably knockback early on in the game is not all that great, but later on you'll hit opponents for like 300, and then you'll knock them back into an ally, and they'll hit them for another 100.
Yeah,
knockback becomes really powerful later on.
Man, I kept like reading reviews when the game was coming out, and I was like, I really want to play this game. I kind of want to wait because Mario's coming out. I'm playing Fire Emblem. Been playing this JRPG. I keep hearing more about the game, and I want to freaking play it because I love South Park and I love the first game. But
it's a good game.
I'm playing three things right now.
You're gonna have to wait. If it makes you feel any better, though, the real major DLC for South Park isn't gonna come out until, at least in my opinion, the real major DLC until 2018. The first season, because they apparently have this whole season pass details at least for it out. The first DLC is just going to be the Danger Room, the training room. Like Ayla X-Men is going to be available to do some like super hard fighting challenges. It'll also unlock a few more costumes and whatnot, because you can go through the game as you unlock stuff and you'll get more costumes and stuff.
Fashion Souls.
Yeah. Then after that, which in 2018 this is where it really comes into play, is you'll get the story expansion, which is From Dusk Till Casa Bonita, which is obviously a play off of From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
But essentially you team up with the Coon and Mysterion to defeat the demonic presence of Casa Bonita. And it also
jump off the cliff with sweet cliff divers.
Yep. You'll also get another expansion called Bring the Crunch, which adds a new story.
Mint Berry Crunch.
Yep, and a new superhero class, which both of these are for $12, unfortunately.
Berry Crunch.
We do know that the first one, I believe, is going to have you facing goth kids and vampires who are trying to summon a demonic presence. So I'm kind of excited to see it. I'm hoping that potentially the new class might be a vampire, because there is one sidekick, Clyde, who has a class you don't have access to at all. Because generally you can copy just about anybody's class in some shape or form. But Clyde actually has
Mosquito?
Yeah, he's the Mosquito, and he actually has a class I think called that's actually called Vampire. It's like something vampire. It's a hybrid of two. Mm-hmm. But when he attacks, he actually heals himself when he attacks an opponent.
Oh, that's good.
So it's actually pretty good. Although he's kind of fragile, but I mean the self-healing is really potent.
Yeah.
He's also really maneuverable from most of his abilities, right?
Yeah, he has a lot of good abilities. He's actually a pretty solid character in my eyes. His single hits 3 times, so he'll generally heal himself up a fair amount. He can do a line attack, which will hit in multiple people and heal himself. And he has one other move that will hit around him, causing a little bit of damage, a status effect, and most importantly, give him attack up for his later turns if he survives to that point.
So who is your party meta then? I don't know who you use.
I'll be honest, the party I use actually switches around. There's none of the other kids I really cared for all that much. In any particular, I will say my favorite sidekick character was actually Call Girl herself. If nothing for the fact that I liked her character and the very fact that she's just decked out in like iPhones and iPads and Samsungs and Galaxies and whatnot. Just that made me laugh. But she's actually just overall a generally good character. She's got a good amount of ability. She's got a taunt and shield. She's got a really good, strong, potent range attack and very, very strong melee attack. But generally, I tended to either take then the Human Kite or Clyde, depending on who I felt like. I enjoyed Craig, Super Craig. I just thought was funny.
What does Craig do?
Super Craig is literally a bruiser, but he's a really like tank-based bruiser that's more of direct tanking.
Oh, okay.
He either has a move that will punch somebody really hard and knock them back. He has a ranged move that will knock back the first person he hits. And then he has another one where he just gives somebody the middle finger and it taunts them and forces them to attack him, but he puts up a shield so you really can't be damaged by it.
He's almost like Superman if Superman decided to lose the lasers and the frost breath.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's really what his character is. Super Craig is just Superman, essentially. But I actually brought him along because I just loved his deadpan humor, and he's always
he's awesome.
He's like there's like one of the instances he trades with Kyle for the Human Kite. He's like, wow, I didn't know Human Kites could shoot lasers. And he's like, well, I'm glad you changed your opinion on them. And he's like, who said I changed my opinion?
Yeah. So how heavily How heavily does the game lean on like the Civil War satire stuff, or does it like completely segue by the end of it?
The Civil War, it comes up a lot in the first half of the game. Like, it does happen, but it's not a major focus. It's just like they always make jokes about it.
It's like the setup, basically.
There's like use Civil War a couple of times, and when they do it like the second or third time, they make reference to the fact that it's like the second or third time that you're Civil Warring, and they're like, "Yeah, Civil War, throwdown, second time."
Oh my god!
Is it Civil War? For some reason, I thought it was like supposed to be DC, like kicking the DC versus Marvel as opposed to Civil War.
No, it doesn't. They don't care. It's a reference to all superheroes and generals. So,
man,
yeah, like,
oh man, I want to play it.
Yup. And then I think there's supposed to be a little bit more DLC that comes later on. I don't know if they've decided anything of that, because when you go to Canada, they have the wall up there.
Mm-hmm.
Because like in the original game, you went over there for the RP, and you went like to the JRPG thing.
Yeah.
But in this game, if you try to go back up there, you get to
Garrison's wall.
Yeah, the wall that's been set up. I don't know if there's going to be a DLC that involves that or not, but I would like to think there might be something up there. So
Canada was like the biggest surprise in the first game because like everything is 8-bit.
Yeah,
it was pretty awesome.
But it's a good game. I enjoyed the crap out of it. I can't wait for the DLC. The only downside I would state is that there really is nothing to do once you beat the story. You finish up stuff that showed up at the start of the game. There's only one secret battle, which I won't say. But that secret battle, it is the hardest battle. So technically there is one thing you can do that's like the last challenge, but it really is just one thing. And that's it.
Yeah. Well, it's all about experiencing the story for the most part.
Yeah.
That's why you have the game.
Yeah. I almost wish this game did have a New Game Plus. I would actually play through this game if it had a New Game Plus.
Yeah.
It'd be really fun to play through like that, but it does not, so.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah.
Oh, well, once I get through my long list of stuff I'm playing right now, it feels like I'm back on the backlog. I cleared my backlog from all the way back in February, basically, and now it's back again because I got to play through Mario. I got to finish Fire Emblem Warriors. I've been playing Trials of Cold Steel 2, and then I want to play this. And then I've got to do it all before Monster Hunter World.
Yep, because Monster Hunter World is going to come out, and then I actually need to take a look into the Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah, I want to replay that
multiplayer
too.
Yeah, I kind of want to see that I want to try it out. I want to see how it goes.
Yeah. Oh man.